Hi everyone, thanks very much for joining us today for this exciting launch of the Payroll Administrator Apprenticeship, which we are launching today in partnership with the Global Payroll Association. We're going to share with you today a few details about the programme, how it works, and how you can get involved and how you can access the funding for this for yourself or perhaps your team as well. So without further ado, we'll just do some quick introductions. So that's myself, Sam Hitchin-Ray, Partnerships Director at the Institute of Financial Operations and Leadership. And my role at the Institute really involves working with our partners, like the Global Payroll Association, to ensure that we're bringing value to our members through our partners. So I'm glad to be joined today by Mel and Kate. So I'll just pass you over to Mel now to give us a quick introduction.
Hi everyone, I'm Melanie Pizzey. I'm the CEO of the Global Payroll Association. For those of you that don't know me, I've been working in the payroll industry for 25 years now, which has gone very quickly. So great to join you all today and to have a chance to discuss what we're doing within the apprenticeship scheme. So over to you, Kate.
Hello, my name's Kate Upcraft. I'm one of the tutors with the Global Payroll Association who's been involved in pulling together the apprenticeship offering that we have. I'm also a consultant with my own payroll consultancy company. I've been involved in payroll even longer than Mel because I'm much older. So I've been in payroll for 30 years this autumn and right through operational payroll, and now I'm a consultant running my own business.
Excellent, thank you, Mel and Kate. It's glad to have you with us today. So let's just kick off the discussion today and the launch with well, quickly first look at our two organisations. So the Institute of Financial Operations, most people who are joining us today will have undoubtedly heard of us, as I'm sure you've been on lots of our other webinars. But we essentially offer just over 13 different online certifications and apprenticeships across lots of different areas, including accounts payable, procure to pay, accounts receivable, order to cash, shared services, and now payroll as well. So we've got roughly 30,000 students and members across 22 different countries. So we're a global organisation, and typically most of our members tend to be UK, EU, and North America based. Here's some of our clients you can see on the right hand side that we're very proud to be working with. And hopefully we'll be able to add a few more logos to that soon. So over to you, Mel. Can you tell us a bit about the GPA?
Yeah, so I suppose we're like a one-stop shop for anybody within payroll, so whether or not it's global or in country. So some people are surprised when we talk about the UK, because UK is still a global country, it's still part of the global remit. And we have members all around the world. We offer training, and luckily for us, we've been offering online training for a number of years, and Kate is our UK trainer. We also have our Global Payroll Awards. Unfortunately, we had streaming issues this year, which was very stressful, but I'm glad to say that the streaming's going well today, so I'm not jinxed. We're all very passionate about payroll, I suppose. We're payroll geeks. Maybe I shouldn't say that out loud, but we are. And we try and assist people. We try to be the middle people. People come to us if they need help with providers or training. So just to go on the next slide, just to give you an idea of some of our members. We do have members all around the world. We have some very large names, but we also help people who are in charities or one-man bands. So obviously there are big names there, but we do help people across the board and all over the world. And I'm ashamed to say that sometimes I have to Google to see where some of these countries are. So yeah, so we're in a good, fortunate position.
Good, excellent. Well, good to get a nice overview there of the Global Payroll Association. So the first discussion point for today is kind of why we're launching this this payroll administrator apprenticeship and what it means for you as perhaps an individual looking to go into payroll, or as a manager of a team who are looking to maybe upskill and train your payroll team. So we're going to start from right from the beginning, the Apprenticeship Standard, and what that means when I refer to the Apprenticeship Standard is the set of knowledge, skills and behaviours that an individual must demonstrate as part of the apprenticeship to achieve the qualification. So how does the apprenticeship standard come together, I hear you ask? Essentially, the companies that you can see on the screen now form what's called a trailblazer group, which is essentially a group of employers who have their opinion on what they feel that someone who's going to do this qualification should be able to demonstrate across their knowledge, skills and behaviours. Once that's all agreed, that then gets approved by the Institute of Apprenticeships and Technical Education, and then it becomes a what they call an apprenticeship standard, which can then be delivered by training providers. Now, the way that that's delivered is can vary. So the standard will detail what the learner must learn and know as part of the apprenticeship standard, but how that's achieved it varies depending on who's delivering it. So training providers can create their own training materials, but quite often what happens is training providers will go to professional bodies within the industry to source materials. So what we've done here is, we've worked with the Global Payroll Association, who have developed those materials that fit, side by side with the apprenticeship standard. So anyone that does the course essentially ticks all the boxes for the apprenticeship standard. So that apprenticeship standard, was actually approved by the Institute for Apprenticeships on the 13th of June 2018. So it's not by any means a brand new apprenticeship standard. It's something that's been available for a few years, and there have been a few people that have been through the apprenticeship. So why are we looking to launch it, or why are we launching this now? 3 years down the line, why are we launching it at this point? I think to understand that a little bit more, we just need to look at kind of what the current market offering is in terms of this apprenticeship standard. So Mel and Kate, maybe you could give us some input here on what you understand the current market offering looks like, and maybe what maybe some of your members have told you that they've experienced if they've been through the apprenticeship, or they've got members of their team studying this apprenticeship at the moment.
Be honest with you, we got quite a lot of pressure from our members, and we're disappointed to say that we weren't delivering the apprenticeship scheme. So there has been a pressure from our side, but it wasn't that because we didn't want to deliver it, it was actually the opportunity to make sure that we're providing the right material. So from what I've heard from our members was that they were slightly disappointed with some of the material that had been provided by some of the providers who were not payroll experts. So payroll people, for those of you that have joined us today, will know that you're very passionate about the industry and you want things to be delivered, and maybe critical when things aren't delivered correctly, obviously, because that's your job. You're about being correct, about having your payroll correct every month or week. So we heard some stories that maybe some of the training that was provided wasn't actually by payroll professionals. And that maybe that the apprentices weren't being mentored or weren't supported by payroll professionals, so that there was a problem if they had a question or just needed that support. And I think no matter what age you are, if you're looking at upskilling or being trained, you want to have support from somebody who actually understands what you're being taught, and also having ongoing support. So I think that's really the key things that we heard from our members. I don't know, Kate, if you had anything extra to add to that at all.
I think one of the problems that you can come over if you're trying to cover too many bases as a training provider is that there can be a temptation to provide the slides to a trainer who effectively just delivers what's on the slides, which is fine until you get a question from a delegate who wants to understand either a concept or wants to relate it to something operationally in their own organisation. And then I'm afraid you start to come a little bit unstuck if you're not somebody who's actually living and breathing the profession, because you only have you might be an excellent presenter, but if you haven't actually got the technical operational background, that's when the credibility can start to be a little bit difficult for the delegates, because you're not able then to actually explain a little bit more from your day-to-day expertise. So I think that's what I'm hearing from people, that they really want to be talking and taught by somebody who's doing this on a day-to-day basis, who can relate to their concerns and some of the quite understandable worries about, am I going to be able to do this? Have I got to be great at maths? All these sort of things that you can only reassure people if you really know that, and it's not just that you're a great presenter and you're just reading off the slides what you've been told to deliver for the day.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's at the moment the kind of offering is lacking a bit of or individuals who have understanding of the complex situations and how to apply these theories and things into real life and into put them into practice in their workplace, really. Would you say that that's kind of where things sit at the moment?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I suppose then we can see then that there's a gap, I suppose, in terms of what's being delivered at the moment. So how are we kind of going to fulfill this? Mel, would you be able to tell us a little bit about what the GPA can bring to the table to kind of fill that gap, and how you would be kind of presenting maybe a slightly better offering than what's available at the moment?
Yeah, so I think what I've realised is, and what I've heard is that that there's a lack of mentoring or support with payroll, the payroll apprentices, and that we're looking to
Sorry, I think we might have lost Mel there. Can you hear me, Kate?
Yes, I can hear you, Sam. Can you hear me?
we'll have regular.
Yeah. Oh, I think Mel's back.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what you heard then. So that was my connection. What did you hear about the mentoring?
Yeah, the word
just the very start.
Oh, okay, sorry. So, oh my God, it's the streaming's happening again. So we'll have a mentor. So one thing that's really important is that our apprentices have mentors that they can turn to and that they can ask questions to. We'll also have an assessment tool so we can see where the apprentice is at every stage, and it's not to put pressure on them, but to see where they're lacking in the skill set, and to make sure that they learn more or have some support from their trainer. We have a portal as well, a dedicated portal, so they'll have a lot of information that they can look at. They'll have online training, we'll have recorded training, so we'll offer them a lot of resources and also support, because I think the support thing is a really important side of this apprenticeship scheme. Kate, I don't know if you've got anything else that you wanted to add at all on that.
Yeah, I suppose it sort of comes back to the sort of thing I do on a day-to-day basis, because as a payroll consultant, and particularly this year because of how difficult life has been to be a payroll professional who suddenly had to learn a completely new way of paying people a government grant, I spend my day helping people with individual support queries about their own organisation. So I see this sort of moving seamlessly, hopefully, into the same sort of support that we can offer to apprentices, that we've got that. It's not just a help desk where you can pick the phone up and ask something, but an actual, I really want to not just be told how to do this technically, but I also just want to talk to somebody else who's in the same situation as me, and therefore can empathise with what I'm going through at this particular time. So I've certainly found that that's been a very valuable resource for people over this year. And I think, from the work I'd always done as a trainer, but much more now that I've moved into the online and all the different comms channels that we now use to support people, that's going to be very valuable to apprentices, to not just sit them in a classroom and deliver a session and bring them back 2 weeks later, but have that constant, whatever time of the day or night or comms channel, they can talk to somebody who can reassure them and encourage them on in their studies.
Excellent.
And just to add to that, oh sorry Sam, just to add to that, we'll also have a forum, and we've also got the GPA network app where they'll have access, so different ages may want to communicate different ways to different payroll people. So we'll have the forum on the app, and also we'll have an individual forum for the apprentices, so that they can talk to each other, you know, just to ask each other questions. So we have that availability as well.
Excellent. So anyone that joins this program, then it sounds like they're going to be supported from start to finish, and not just supported, but supported by professionals like yourself, Kate, who work in the industry, who can, you know, answer those complex questions and help with different scenarios. But just be there as a sounding board as well, I guess, because, you know, people just want to, quite a lot of the time, want to share their opinions and get kind of some validation on what their thoughts are.
One of the difficult things in a lot of smaller businesses is that, and the apprentices will find this as they go on in their professional lives, is they may begin as apprentices with other colleagues who are doing payroll, but they'll soon realise that they're going to have to become very self-sufficient in this industry, because in most organisations there may be only them. So unless they're going to the sort of bureau payroll agent type world, they are going to need to be able to be resilient, but develop a network of support. And whether that's the other apprentices in their cohort or just within the industry, you know, so much of what I do on a day-to-day basis is joining people together who are in the same sectors or same particular situation in their career. Because it is a very lonely profession at times, and you can never know everything. I mean, I've been doing it 30 years, but I learn something brand new every day because it's a massive subject. So it's just really, you know, linking people together and giving them the confidence that once you've got that network and you've got a qualification behind you, you will be able to be, you know, a sole practitioner, but still have that support out there that you start off with as an apprentice.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing that you've identified there, Kate, is that you know, someone like yourself understands that that's the situation, and that's where the career path, or what the scenarios that people might face themselves in. Whereas potentially, you know, if someone from a training provider who doesn't have any experience in the industry but is, you know, a very good trainer, might not have that knowledge and might not be able to share that and you know, set expectations for those learners perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've looked at then, you know, what the current situation is with the offering. We've looked at, you know, how the GPA are working with us to offer, you know, something that kind of fills the gap and, you know, provides a lot of support for learners as they join the program. I think what we should look at really is kind of the change and the evolution of apprenticeships, just to put everything into context. So in terms of, you know, apprenticeships, I'm sure, you know, none of us here and none of us on the call are old enough to probably have experienced what we can see in the image there in terms of that apprenticeship. But but what are your thoughts, Mel, to start off with, on apprenticeships? Say if I would have mentioned to you, you know, the word apprenticeship, you know, a few years ago, what would have sprung to mind initially? What would you associate with an apprenticeship?
I actually recruited a couple of apprenticeship people a few years back, and it was a very different system to what it is today. And you know, I don't think that the support was available to those individuals than what is available now. It's more of a professional organisation qualification. There's more support, I think. So if you said to me about apprenticeship scheme, I would, you know, before it would have been young individuals that didn't want to study, couldn't get a job, and then that's what the next offering was, other than staying at home with their parents.
Yeah, and I think that's quite common. I mean, what were your thoughts, Kate? I mean, if we would have mentioned, the word apprenticeship to you a few years ago, what would you have kind of associated that with?
Yes, I'd agree with Mel. I think there was also, until the government recognised that we had got a huge skills issue across the whole of the UK, and that was not going to be addressed by churning people out of sometimes quite questionable degree courses, which they'd spent a lot of money on, but didn't suit the world of work at all. Then seeing that you could actually start to get a professional qualification right the way through from age 16 and 18, rather than bringing people into the workplace at, at 21, 22. And I suppose it came home to me about 3 or 4 years ago when I started working with a particular large accountancy practice that had a very structured entry program into payroll, but they brought people in both from accountancy degrees and on apprenticeships. And by far, all of the time, the apprentices were the ones who went on much more quickly into senior jobs, because they were learning on the job and operationally, whereas those who came in with an accountancy degree, and whether it's the fault of the higher education system that it's not turning out people who are operationally able to hit the ground running, but certainly their experience was, and of talking to the people who I met from both cohorts, is that the apprentices who had come in, predominantly at this were A-level entry, but obviously younger than that as well in different sectors, found that this had been much more of an opportunity for them to earn, as well as make progress very quickly and grow up very quickly as well. So I would never now, if as a mum myself, would not have necessarily encouraged my 2 children to assume that the only way to get a really fastly progressing career would have been to go to university. The fact we got right up to degree level and beyond apprenticeships now is transformed what offering is there for young people and existing members of the workforce, and that's great for our profession, because now people are choosing to join it with a qualification, not as we did, or I did, accidentally becoming a payroll professional. So it's transformed what opportunities there are for people.
Yeah, excellent. I think that is the point of apprenticeships, really, isn't it? They give you the opportunity to learn in a practical workplace, rather than just understanding the theory of a role and how it fits into an organisation. So it is invaluable, really. And apprenticeships have over the last few years gone through massive sort of reforms and introduced the apprenticeship levy, which I'm sure most people have heard of, but maybe don't have a full understanding of how that works. And also the change from what apprenticeships used to be, which was frameworks, where it was essentially a framework was a list of all the things that a learner must understand as part of the apprenticeship, and it gave instructions on how that had to be delivered and what the material must have been. Whereas now standards, the change from apprenticeship frameworks to standards have much more flexibility, where you can use whichever material you want to use, as long as it teaches the right things that people need to learn as part of the apprenticeship. So just looking at apprenticeships today, how have they changed? Well, the first thing is apprenticeships are for everyone now. So it's not just the young and inexperienced who are coming in as part of their early career into an organisation. Apprenticeships are for anyone, regardless of age, regardless how long they've been doing the role for, or how long they've been employed by the company. You can offer an apprenticeship to someone regardless of their age and experience. The way that they're delivered now is very different as well. There's a lot of blended learning across online kind of workshops, masterclasses, and work-based learning as well. So applying what you learn in those masterclasses to the workplace. And then there's also recognised certificates now and qualifications that you can gain, such as part of this apprenticeship. There would be a nationally recognised apprenticeship qualification that the learners would gain. So just one thing that I'm just going to touch on, because I did mention it, the apprenticeship levy, just to explain what that kind of means. Essentially, any business who has an annual payroll bill of over £3 million in England, they will pay into what's called the apprenticeship levy at a rate of 0.5% of the excess of the 3 million. So that goes into your organisation's account, and that money can either be spent on apprenticeship training, or 18 months later you lose what went into that account in month 1. So we found, this came into effect in 2017, and we found that so many organisations perhaps didn't make use of that money, and then 18 months later we're starting to see, big chunks of cash that were essentially being lost from their apprenticeship levy account, and that goes back into the government, which is then recycled for apprenticeship training for smaller organisations. So essentially, what we're looking at here is, there's a lot of change in apprenticeships, there's lots of reform, and it's for the better, really, and apprenticeships now are for everyone. So just to kind of back that up, I mean, there's some kind of key stats here that we've got, which show that 46% of apprenticeships that started during 2018-19 were people of age 25 and over, and the largest increase was in the number of people doing apprenticeships was the age group 35 to 44. So I think what that kind of tells us is that more and more organisations are starting to spend this apprenticeship levy and their funds on training those that are already in the organisation and perhaps have been with them for a number of years, but the funds are being used to train and upskill existing staff rather than just bringing in new staff onto apprenticeship schemes. So I think that's going to be a big thing for this particular apprenticeship, because almost every company will have a payroll team, and I'm sure that there are lots of people out there who perhaps haven't, have learned from experience rather than doing a payroll qualification perhaps. So there's an opportunity now for those individuals to gain a qualification in payroll, and get that behind them. So in terms of the next kind of discussion point, then I'm just going to kind of turn this one over to you, Mel, and you, Kate, in terms of the content of the actual program that we're going to be offering here. Can you tell us a bit about how the program came together, and how it was written, and what the program consists of?
Yeah, so I think I'll start off by saying thank you, Kate. I think I nearly killed Kate during the summer. So during the pandemic, obviously there's it was such a busy time and so much was going on, but actually I think it gave some of us an opportunity to take a step back and be able to do some things that maybe we haven't had a chance to do. So one of the key things that we were asked to do was develop the apprenticeship scheme for one of our clients, and I asked Kate, and luckily she said yes, if she could write the apprenticeship scheme. And I think it's fair to say, Kate, we both realised there was a lot more involved than what we initially thought there would be, and that's why I said that maybe I nearly killed Kate during the summer. So I'll let Kate explain more about what's involved within the actual subjects of the apprenticeship scheme. But I think what we decided to do was to really make sure that everything was available online, because we don't really know what's going to happen over the next year or even 2 years. Obviously we've got the vaccines, but what does the landscape look like for workers? So we are traditionally an online organisation anyway. We have things in place, but it's just to make sure that we've got this available for the apprenticeship scheme and to really work out how we want the apprenticeship scheme to work. So one of the key things for me is really important that the individuals are supported. So Kate fantastically wrote the apprenticeship scheme, and for my part, is to make sure that we have a program available, we have the tools available to make sure that the apprentices feel supported, and also we can carry on supporting them and educating them for when they want to. So we have a bank of information available, and it is an 18-month program, so it's a long program that we need to fill. But Kate, obviously you've got a list of topics there, but I think is it fair to say that you learned stuff yourself as you're going through all of these?
Well, I certainly learned how much time it took to do this as thoroughly as it needed to be done. And look, we've mapped the 32 modules that I wrote back to the apprenticeship standard. So we are teaching to the standard because that is the only sensible thing to do. So if you look at that list and think, well, I can spot something that's not on there. Well, if it's not on there, it's because at level 3, you're not expected to know about it. And it's something more complicated that might fit into level 5, which is the next level you can go to in terms of qualification after this entry level. This is an entry level qualification, but it's divided into 4 distinct chunks. So the first 12 modules are what we call Payroll Core, and they are overview modules for the apprentices. Then we go on to the next 12 modules, which are not only taught in terms of either recorded or live sessions, but they're supported by a workbook as well. So what we think is slightly different about this qualification is that you practice all the way through the technical modules, and you do actual exercises, so that tries to replicate the sort of things that you will get at your endpoint assessment in some of these technical areas, where you will actually have to not just talk about things but calculate things. Because as much as people might, and hopefully this year has dispelled this, think that all we do is press a button and our software does everything else, that is not how our profession operates. You have to be able to calculate things from the bottom up and do it without any particular software that's going to help you. So that's what the payroll technical modules are for. There's then a series of modules about pensions, because as well, since 2012, of course, we've all had to become pensions experts in our particular profession, since we've had to embrace auto enrolment. So it wouldn't have been appropriate to have an entry-level qualification that didn't have a particular focus on pensions as well. And when we were initially developing the standard, because I was part of the Trailblazer group as well, there was a strong feeling that pensions had to be part of the offering, because lots of people may well work just within the pensions arena themselves, running pensions payrolls. So that was also a very important area to understand, that can be a profession in itself. And then the final module is all about regulation and compliance. So it brings together what the law is around all the other 31 modules, and really draws all those threads together, so people are clear who are the different regulatory bodies that they will come into contact with, and the things that they have to do on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis in order to stay on the right side of the law. So there's a lot of content. It has to be kept up to date, which is another huge challenge that we have to address, because every single slide needs to be up to date as at that tax year. And that's one of the most important parts about this training, is that it is not an off-the-shelf package that exists for the next X number of years. It's a live qualification that is changing all the time, which is why you also need trainers who are embedded in this day to day, who know what is happening and can keep the material fresh and appropriate.
And can I just make a point that some of the feedback we received from some of the other people that have had apprentices through the scheme was that they felt that it wasn't written to the standard. So one of the key things when Kate and I spoke was to ensure that it's written to the standard, that it's not just payroll courses that have been written that are just lumped together into different modules. So I think that that's the key thing for me, and also important for Kate, that it is actually written for the apprenticeship scheme and not just muddled together.
The easy option for me, because I've got a bank of courses that I deliver all the time as a consultant, I could have just said, oh right, well in week 1 they can go on this course of mine, and in week 4 they can do that one, and we'll cut a bit out of that one and put it into that one. And that we didn't feel was right, because this needs to be delivered in the way that they're going to be tested on it at the end, so that it is rigorous but it's structured to the standard. Otherwise we'd just be throwing people into an endpoint assessment that they've got no chance that they're actually going to pass, and that's not appropriate to their employer either, who has used their levy funds. You know, and these levy funds are very sought after. There'll be lots of parts of organisations that want to train, and we've got to pitch for those as the payroll team alongside everybody else. So therefore what we need to do is to make sure that we're giving people value for money, and if they're coming to us for a qualification, what they get is tailored to that, and it's not just a cheap way of using their levy funds and taking off the shelf courses to deliver that.
Yeah, I think that's it's a really important point that you've made in terms of having the course tailored to the actual apprenticeship standard, because, you know, as I mentioned earlier, with an apprenticeship standard, you can deliver it using whatever materials you want. You can create your own materials if you wanted to, but the issues that arise from that, which, you know, do get reported every now and then from you know, where training providers have tried to deliver an apprenticeship using their own materials, is that there are gaps, and so the learners don't learn everything that they need to as part of the apprenticeship, and then they get to what we call the endpoint assessment that you just touched on there, Kate, where they don't have all they can't display all the knowledge, skills and behaviours that they need to get through endpoint assessment, and inevitably don't pass the final assessment. Which, you know, in some circumstances can be costly for the business, because there can be a cost involved with putting a learner back through an endpoint assessment, but also it's quite damaging, I feel, to the learner as well. You know, it'd be a big knock to the confidence, and not really their fault, because they haven't been provided with the right level of material to get them to the point where they need to be. So I think we definitely need to stress that this material has been written exactly and mapped exactly to the apprenticeship standard. So I guess in theory, Kate, we're saying that if someone completes this course, they will have met all of the requirements of the apprenticeship standard. Is that right?
Yes, certainly that's the intention. We can't guarantee, of course, that everybody's retained all the information that they've been taught and are able to put it into practice. So you can't say that every single person who goes through this is going to breeze through endpoint assessment. It's still a rigorous qualification. That's why it lasts 18 months. And people have got to put their own effort into practicing and understanding and being supported in the workplace, because although we talk about support, we are not people's employers. And when you have an apprentice, you also have a role as an employer in giving them the opportunities to practice and the support in the workplace as well to try out things and sometimes get them wrong and then try again. But I certainly know from the large businesses and clients that I work with that those who are big enough to have payroll teams now have changed their attitude completely over the last few years, because it's so difficult to recruit experienced payroll professionals now, because people hold on to them. They would much rather bring somebody in who's got no experience at all, whatever age they are, and train them themselves. And the apprenticeship offers that opportunity, because then you know that you're getting somebody who actually is going to be able to do what their CV says, because it's very easy to say that you're a payroll professional because you've keyed some data in and then, you know, run some reports. That is not what our profession needs, and this sort of standard is what our profession needs. People really are able to do what their CV says.
Absolutely. So just going back, Kate, to one thing that you mentioned a little bit earlier on, is that this course is for, you know, an entry-level course. Would you say that it's suitable though for someone who's perhaps already been working in payroll but hasn't gained any formal qualification, or, you know, hasn't taken their career to management level at present, but wants to get a qualification behind them?
Oh, absolutely. And when I'm training, when I'm not doing this, when I'm training as a consultant myself, the people that I will get on my basic payroll courses, some of them might have been in payroll for 10 to 20 years, but A, they've never had any training. They have just sat alongside somebody. And B, because it evolves so much, this profession, there's always the opportunity to learn, to understand why you've been doing something for all that time and never understood why you did it that particular way, or to realize you've actually been doing something the wrong way or a very long-winded way because nobody's ever told you that there is an easier way because of the way you've learnt on the job. So there's always that opportunity for people, however long they've been doing something, to then get some recognition for what they've been doing. And a lot of people, you know, of my age have never had the chance to take a qualification. I didn't go to university. I joined a management training scheme at 18 and worked my way through the business and ended up accidentally becoming the payroll manager at M&S, you know. But I had the chance, because my employer was far thinking enough, to take a qualification in payroll whilst I was working, and it was the making of me. You know, to think that I would be doing what I'm doing now, that would never have happened if my employer hadn't been far-sighted enough to think that's what we'll give somebody the chance to do, even though they've been in work for a number of years. So absolutely, this is not just about youngsters, it's about giving people who've been doing it that credibility and belief in themselves, as well as the youngsters coming into the profession.
Excellent. Really good to hear a bit about your journey there, Kate. So just before we kind of move on to this slide, in terms of that course content and the breakdown, sorry, the table of contents, Mel, is that available from you at the GPA on the website perhaps, or is that in production at the moment?
It's in production at the moment, but if you can contact me, then I can send that through to whoever needs it. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So just to kind of round that part off a little bit then, in terms of when someone completes that this apprenticeship, the offering that's coming from us is that, you know, the individual will upon successful completion of the endpoint assessment, they'll achieve the national apprenticeship qualification. They'll achieve a certificate from the Global Payroll Association, and they'll also achieve a certificate from the Institute of Financial Operations and Leadership, which is, you know, a very unique offering. From what I understand and from my knowledge, I understand that the current offering is you know, just one of those. So it's the national apprenticeship qualification that learners are achieving at the moment. Not sure if you're aware, Mel or Kate, of any other certificates that are available as part of this apprenticeship.
No.
Been focusing on ours.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think, you know, the offering essentially from us is very unique, and it's a, you know, a 3-way certificate that the learners will gain at no additional cost, I might add as well. So in terms of who can enroll and who this apprenticeship is aimed at, then, you know, the apprenticeship itself is for both existing employees who want to be upskilled, and it's for new employees who want to join the organisation as part of an apprenticeship scheme as well. So there's no restrictions on, you know, who you want to put onto the apprenticeship scheme. Obviously, as long as the individual wants to do the apprenticeship, that's an important part. Then it's open to everyone. And in terms of the course itself, it's a level 3 qualification, and to put that into context, a level 3 equates to A levels. So it's you know, one stage prior to doing a degree or a foundation degree, essentially. So although it is aimed at, you know, an entry level, it is definitely substantial enough for someone who, you know, as we just discussed, someone who's been working in payroll for, you know, maybe a number of years, but perhaps hasn't got a qualification behind them to date. And just to kind of play on that a little bit, there is a something that's done when someone does enroll in the apprenticeship. There's what's called a skills scan, where the training provider comes and meets with the employee, or currently due to restrictions it would be done through Zoom or Skype, etc. And we assess whether the individual is of the right level in terms of their skills and experience and knowledge to come onto a level 3 apprenticeship, but also from the other side, if they've already got a foundation degree perhaps in payroll management, are they the right sort of level to come onto a level 3? Perhaps not. Maybe they would be better suited to a level 5 apprenticeship instead. So there is that kind of I guess barrier where we do come and meet with the learner and make sure that they're the right sort of individual to come onto the apprenticeship, because the last thing that anyone wants is for someone to come onto an apprenticeship that's not right for them, and then they essentially don't get to endpoint assessment or don't pass the endpoint assessment, and that wouldn't be good for anyone. So the final kind of discussion point here is how you can access the relevant funding for this apprenticeship and for all apprenticeships really. So in terms of funding eligibility, the way that works is essentially, I think I mentioned this earlier, if your company has an annual payroll bill of £3 million or more, then your company will be paying into the apprenticeship levy. Those funds will build up in your company's apprenticeship levy account, and they can be spent on apprenticeship training only. This course is covered under that. Once you exhaust all of those apprenticeship levy funds, for instance, if your company's paying in £10,000 a month and they put 10 people onto this apprenticeship course, that might exhaust your funds. What happens is then you will be deferred onto what's called the co-investment fund, which means that the co-investment fund is an unlimited fund from the government, which provides you with 95% of the overall funding for the course. So if you kind of defer onto the co-investment fund, your organisation would be responsible for paying 5% of the overall training cost, which in this case, I know the funding for this course is set at £9,000. So the funding would be £450, which I don't know what you think, Mel and Kate, but to me that's some serious value for money. A £9,000 qualification for £450 essentially.
There's just one extra thing to add in with my sort of payroll hat on, is that of course, as soon as you recruit an apprentice, you stop paying any employer's national insurance on them if they are up to the age of 25, so up until their 25th birthday. So that's another 13.8% saving on your salary bill, because there's a national insurance exemption for recruiting apprentices, which of course you learn about during the apprenticeship, because you've got to know how to do that national insurance exemption. So you train people how to save you money by having them as apprentices.
That's right, and I think there are some government schemes out there at the moment where employers receive a payment of roughly sort of £1,500 to £2,000 for recruiting an apprentice, depending on their age. So there's lots of incentives out there for employers to recruit apprentices or to use apprenticeships to upskill their current staff, and that's certainly something that we can share more information on if anyone would like that. Please do ask and get in touch with us for that. So as we can see then, in terms of funding, £9,000 will either come from your apprenticeship levy account that your company has, or the 95% of the funding will come from the co-investment fund. So no one is excluded from this. You can get that funding. So if you do have any questions about funding as well, please do get in touch with us and we can answer any questions for you. So in terms of next steps then, if you are interested in the apprenticeship scheme for yourself or for your team perhaps, the first thing to do is talk to us, speak to us about your requirement, about what it is that you're looking to do, because the beauty of apprenticeships is that they're flexible and that they can be tailored to your organisation and to your team. So speak to us about what you want to achieve, and what you want to get out of it, and we can work with you to put a tailored solution together. The next step after that really is that, you know, we'll help you engage with your learning and development team or your HR team, or you may already be in touch with them about apprenticeships, but if not, we can help you to explain the apprenticeship to them and get them on your team, so to speak, so that they're happy for you to put yourself or your team through the apprenticeship. And then our team will then help with the actual onboarding of yourself or your team. So we take the stress out of that. We take you through a process called signing up, which is essentially what it says in the tin, where we will arrange a time and date to speak with the learners that are going to come onto the program, talk them through the signing up paperwork, because with it being government funding, there is a lot of paperwork that we need to go through, but we get that done in a roughly 45-minute session with each learner, and we explain all of the do's and don'ts throughout the apprenticeship. And then from that point, the learner would be given a formal start date, and then Kate, I believe you would take it from there to give them their first piece of learning.
That's right.
Yeah. And just to be clear then, Kate, are you going to be the first kind of mentor for any students that come through this apprenticeship then?
I think that's the plan, if that's what Boss says.
Yeah, we've got a bank of people that are raring to join the team to start training people. I think the thing about payroll professionals are they want to train new people coming up, and Kate is our first mentor, and then once, I think Kate can only do so many. That'd be great if she could do everyone. And then we've got a bank of fantastic payroll professionals that are really looking forward to helping the new generation, no matter how old, work up the ranks and become payroll professionals. Because I'd just like to say that everyone around the world is worrying about who's going to be the next payroll professional. So it's not just a UK problem, it's everywhere around the world that they're worried about who's going to be the next people within the profession. So if we can help with that, then I think we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, as it stands, there aren't any questions, so we must have done a brilliant job of explaining everything to everyone to this point. And I know that we are running out of time, so if there are any questions, please do feel free to get in touch with us on the contact details that you can see on the screen now. You know, we're happy to help with you know, a discussion and you know, talk to you about what you're looking to achieve, and you know, make sure that the apprenticeship's right for you and your organisation. So there's our contact details. Please feel free to get in touch. And then, you know, finally, I just want to say thank you, Mel and Kate, for joining us. You know, the apprenticeship scheme that we're offering sounds absolutely fantastic. So, you know, let's look forward to the first enrolment of students, which I know will be taking place during Q1 of 2021. So, yeah, thank you very much for joining us, both of you.
Thank you very much,
Sam. Can I do a cheeky little plug? We've got we've got a symposium this afternoon talking about the future of payroll and how it's going to affect payroll. So obviously we're all looking at about Brexit, sorry to say the big B word, that's coming up, and it potentially would be a no deal, which will affect payroll. So we'll be discussing that. So that's this afternoon. Thanks,
brilliant.
Sam.
So if you want to get some knowledge on that, then join that webinar with Mel this afternoon. That sounds fantastic. So yeah, finally, thank you both again, and you know, thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Bye bye now.
Bye.
Bye.